Good morning. Welcome to my shop and today's version of Stop Believing Horseshit. If you followed me along at all, then you already know that horseshit is a noun. It means nonsense. A lot of things going on with this flag right now. Folks who are on opposite sides of that. One side of that, the people who are in favor of this and think it's great and ought to keep it, argument they use, which is that that's not even the right flag. It's not the Confederate flag, and so on. Things along that line, and I declare that to be horseshit. Follow me along here. Follow the bouncing ball. I'm not saying that isn't a fact. I'm not saying they're wrong, because that is a fact. That's not truly the Confederate national flag. They had several of them if you go look it up. And this was their battle flag. Was only used a little bit, and it became popular after the war, so on, and still popular today. The term I use is that it represents the economics of owning human beings. My point being is that I could today, right this moment, make my own flag. Green stripes with blue checkers around it, and wave it. Ooh, the South will rise again. Weren't we superior way back then? And we ought to be doing that again. And I'm going to wave this flag and use it to perpetuate and repeat history of bigotry and prejudice and continue to be superior and pretend like I am. I could make that flag now, today, and it could still be said that that flag that I made and I'm waving represents the economics of owning human beings, just like this does. And those people who want to make an argument that that's not even the right flag, why do they do that? I can tell you why. Because they're dismissive. They're dismissive of the other point of view. They don't want to hear that. Same thing that they are ordinarily and have been historically dismissive of the rights of other human beings. Same thing. They're dismissive. Doesn't matter. They're dismissive of people of color. They don't matter. They're dismissive of the fact that what this represents, and they don't want to hear it, so they make a dismissive argument. That's not even the right one. If you're going to argue with me, you got to at least have the right flag. Well, this is the one that everybody knows. This is the one that represents the economics of owning human beings. And it doesn't matter if it came up 150 years ago or yesterday. Same result. Same representation. Perpetuating bigotry and prejudice. So to make that argument is just dismissive when they make that argument to you. And I've even seen things on the internet about it. And, if you're going to argue about this, you ought to at least be correct and all that. It's what it represents, by far. I've also in the past compared the slave trade to the Nazis. I was actually told by somebody to stop using that because it's overused. What I have found through many years of talking about lots of things is when somebody says stop using that, it's overused. Doesn't always, but often means that that's an argument that they can't overcome. So they don't want to hear it. They're tired of hearing it, which is okay. This is, I don't know if you can see this well on this video. That picture right there, that's Dachau concentration camp outside of Munich. I've stood right there with my own 2 feet. Concentration camp from the Nazis. Look at that again. Look, there's a sign hanging up on the rafters right here. See that sign? Here's that sign. Up closer. I don't know if you can read it well, but it says prisoners were hanged from here on the beam. And it's in several languages, so make sure that people that come there can see what that means. So if you're standing in that building, it's a wood frame building, like a shelter house or a cabin or a wood building from many points of time in history. Square beams, this way and that way, making rafters and stuff. Those beams right there where that sign is hanging, and I stood right there in that spot. You can look at these square beams, and in this area that's in front of those ovens, you won't see those ovens in the Civil War, I don't think, anywhere that I've ever seen, so that's not my comparison. My comparison is the beams. You look at these square beams of this building, beautiful building, but right here in front of this oven, this beam is worn round around the top. The corners are worn off of it, making it rounded. I wonder what caused that. What caused that is ropes being dragged down across it, wearing the corners off the beam, stringing people up by their neck. Okay? Follow me here. I would challenge you. I can't say that I know where one's at. I stood in that spot. I would venture to say that there are structures, or have been structures, be they barns or whatever they be, in the Confederate South, where they owned slaves, maybe other places too, where you could go into a barn and open the door, and there's a beam, a square beam right here that is rounded off for the exact same reason. From all of the hundreds of years and decades of the slave trade, and ropes being dragged over that, pulling people up by their neck, pulling them up off on their toes so they can be whipped, pulling them off the ground so they can be done away with. Now, would it be said that every slave got killed and every slave was hung up and tortured? No. Another comparison to the Nazis here. No. They would, if they had a problem, they would make an example of one. Throw the rope over the beam, wear the corners on the beam down, whip him, maybe kill him, make an example, and use fear as their weapon, just like they did the Nazis, just like the Nazis did in Germany. Fear as their weapon. They both extinguished a particular group of people. They both did or tried to destroy the history, again, of a particular group of people. If you go back and look at the Nazi records of the Jews, and you'll find Jewish persons from right now following their family tree back, they will find that in these concentration camps, parts of their family tree stop. You know, Uncle Wilbur and my cousins are way down here, and they live, and they get up to the 1940s, and they cease to exist. So part of my family tree stops right there. My history has been destroyed, as it were. Okay, now think about the slave trade. A person right now following their ancestry. They're getting out their family tree, like people that's been really popular in recent years. They're doing their family tree. They're looking up this person and that person, their relatives, and they work their way back. Goes back to the middle 1800s. Stops. Some part, it's I won't say always, I don't know every single person, but I would say often, at least part of their family tree, maybe the whole family tree, goes back to the mid-1800s and stops. That's the end of their family tree. Now, did they have relatives that went on back to the beginning of time like all of us? Of course they did. Of course they did. But why does their family tree stop right there? Because at that point, their ancestors aren't a person by name. They're a tally mark on a property sheet. So they fall on the family tree back, and they get to that point of time, and they're looking for a male or a female, and they think they're probably about 20, and they live in this neighborhood or area. And they look on John Smith's, plantation owner John Smith, they look on his property sheet, and slave number 12 fits that description. A male, about 20 years old. Slave number 12. That could be your relative. Might not be. But there's no way of knowing. And there's no way of going from there back and knowing how many generations that their family tree was even in the slave trade. There's no records of that because their history at that point ceases to exist. My opinion is that's a very valid comparison compared to the slave trade to the Nazis. Wiping out people's history, concentrating on a particular group of people. I think that's all I got today. Thank you very much.